The sound of fabric tearing echoed through the chemistry lab like a gunshot. 23-year-old Miss Caitlin Foster froze as 3 senior boys circled her desk, the leader holding a piece of her torn skirt in his hand like a trophy. "Oops!" 18-year-old Brett Hawkins smirked, waving the black fabric. "Guess you should wear pants next time. Teach." The entire class sat paralyzed, phones already recording what would become the most viral video in Ridgemont High's history, because what happened in the next 10 seconds would change everything. Before we dive into this incredible story, if you've ever stood up to a bully or wished you had the courage to hit that like button, and if you know someone who needs to hear this message of standing up against injustice, please share it with them. Your comments about your own experiences really help others feel less alone. Also, if these stories inspire you like they inspire me to keep creating them, consider hitting the thanks button below. Every contribution helps me dedicate more time to finding and sharing these powerful moments that remind us we're stronger than we think. Thank you for being here. Now, let's see how one brave teacher changed everything. Caitlin's hand gripped the edge of her desk. Not in fear, in control. The same control she'd learned through 8 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Krav Maga training. The torn fabric of her knee-length pencil skirt fluttered where Brett had grabbed and ripped it during his accidental stumble past her desk. His friends, Connor Walsh and Diego Ramirez, blocked her exits like predators cornering prey. "Mr. Hawkins," Caitlin said, her voice steady as steel. "Step back, now," Brett laughed, the sound sharp and ugly in the sterile lab air. "Or what? You'll write me up, send me to Principal Morrison." He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the energy drink on his breath. "My uncle is the superintendent. You're just another pretty teacher who thinks she's tough." The room held its breath. 24 students watched their newest science teacher face down the 3 most feared seniors in school. Caitlin had only been at Ridgemont for 4 weeks, but that was long enough to know Brett Hawkins ruled these halls through intimidation and family connections. "I said step back," Caitlin repeated, shifting her weight subtly. Her modest heels clicked against the linoleum as she adjusted her stance. Connor moved behind her while she focused on Brett. "Maybe we should check if the whole skirt is defective," he suggested, reaching toward the torn section. His hand never made contact, in one fluid motion. Caitlin pivoted, caught Connor's wrist, and used his forward momentum to guide him face first into the lab table. The impact rattled beakers and sent his safety goggles flying. Before Brett could react, she'd already released Connor and returned to her original position. "Nobody touches me," she stated simply. "Nobody." The classroom erupted in whispers. Someone gasped. "Did you see how fast she moved?" another student whispered. "She's like Black Widow or something." Brett's face flushed crimson. "You just assaulted a student, Diego. You saw that." "Right. She attacked Connor." Diego nodded eagerly, but his hands shook as he pulled out his phone. "Yeah, man, totally unprovoked." Caitlin remained calm, gesturing to the security camera in the corner. "Everything is on video, gentlemen, including Mr. Walsh's attempted assault and your destruction of my property." "Attempted assault?" Brett scoffed. "He was just what?" Caitlin interrupted. "Just trying to tear more of my clothing. Just creating a hostile environment for a female teacher." She pulled her phone from her desk drawer. "Should I call security now? Or would you prefer to leave voluntarily?" The standoff stretched taut as a wire. Connor groaned from his position against the table, slowly pushing himself upright. His nose wasn't broken, but his ego was thoroughly bruised. "This isn't over," Brett snarled, backing toward the door. "You just made the biggest mistake of your career. My uncle will have your job by Monday." "Your uncle can try," Caitlin replied evenly, "but workplace sexual harassment is a federal offense. So is destruction of property and creating an unsafe learning environment." After they left, Caitlin turned back to her class as if nothing had happened. Now, where were we? Ah, yes, covalent bonds. But her hands gripped the marker tighter than necessary. She knew Brett was right about one thing: this was far from over. The Hawkins family had controlled Maplewood's school district for 2 decades. They didn't take challenges lightly. "Miss Foster," a quiet voice spoke up. Jade Patterson, one of her AP chemistry students, raised her hand tentatively. "Are you okay?" Caitlin looked down at her torn skirt, then back at her students. "I'm fine, Jade, though I'll need to change after class." "I have a sweater you can tie around your waist," offered Naomi Chen from the front row. "And I got everything on video," added Marcus Thompson, holding up his phone. "From multiple angles. Brett grabbed your skirt on purpose when he walked by. It's clear as day." The solidarity warmed something in Caitlin's chest. "Thank you all, but let's focus on chemistry for now. Real chemistry, not the toxic kind." As she continued the lesson, Caitlin noticed how her female students sat a little straighter, participated a little more. Several boys, who usually joined Brett's disruptive behavior, remained unusually quiet and attentive. The bell rang 50 minutes later. Students filed out slowly, many stopping to offer support or share their own stories of harassment. Caitlin listened to each one, mental notes accumulating about the depth of the problem at Ridgemont High, after changing into gym clothes from her emergency bag. Caitlin headed to the main office. She needed to file an official report before Brett's version of events became the narrative. The secretary, Mrs. Hobbs, looked up nervously as Caitlin entered. "Oh, Miss Foster, Mr. Morrison is in a meeting with Superintendent Hawkins." "Of course he was. I'll wait." Caitlin sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, listening to raised voices behind the principal's door. She couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. Damage control was already underway. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Superintendent Richard Hawkins emerged first, his silver hair and expensive suit giving him an air of authority that had intimidated teachers for years. He looked exactly like an older version of Brett, down to the predatory smile. "Miss Foster," he said, not offering his hand, "I heard there was an incident in your classroom. Your nephew sexually harassed me and destroyed my property," Caitlin stated directly. "I defended myself when his friend attempted to escalate the assault." Hawkins's smile tightened. "That's a serious accusation. Brett tells a different story. Something about you attacking students unprovoked. The security footage will show the truth." "Unfortunately," Principal Morrison interjected, wringing his hands, "the camera in the chemistry lab has been malfunctioning all week. No footage from today." Caitlin felt her jaw clench, but kept her expression neutral. How convenient. Fortunately, 24 students witnessed the incident. Many recorded it on their phones. "Student recordings aren't admissible as evidence in disciplinary hearings," Hawkins said smoothly. "School policy, for privacy reasons. You understand?" The trap was elegant in its simplicity. They'd already thought of everything. But Caitlin had faced bigger bullies than Brett Hawkins. She'd just never expected to find them running the school system. "I see," she said, standing. "Then I'll be filing a police report for assault and sexual harassment. Those student videos are certainly admissible as criminal evidence." Morrison paled. "Now, Miss Foster, Surely we can handle this internally. No need to involve the law, Caitlin finished. Actually, I think there's every need. If the school won't protect its teachers from sexual assault, then I'll seek protection elsewhere. Hawkins stepped closer, using his height advantage to loom over her. You're new here, so let me explain how things work in Maplewood. The Hawkins family built this town. We employ half the population. We fund the schools, the police department, the local judges. You think you're the first idealistic young teacher to challenge us? No, Caitlin replied, not backing down an inch. But I might be the first one who knows how to fight back. Something flickered in Hawkins's eyes, uncertainty, maybe even fear. Fighting back would be a mistake. Miss Foster, ask Jennifer Martinez what happened when she tried. Oh, wait, you can't. She moved to another state after her breakdown. The threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Caitlin recognized the technique intimidation mixed with plausible deniability. But she'd faced scarier opponents in the ring. Is that a threat, Superintendent? It's a history lesson, he replied. Learn from it. After they left, Morrison slumped in his chair. Miss Foster, I'm trying to protect you here. The Hawkins family, they don't play fair. Neither do I, Caitlin said. Now, I need an incident report form. Morrison reluctantly provided the paperwork. As Caitlin filled it out, she noticed his hands shaking. You know, she said conversationally, I wonder how many other teachers have filed reports about Brett. Would be interesting to pull those records. Those files are confidential, Morrison said quickly. Too quickly. Of course. Just like the security footage that mysteriously disappeared. Caitlin finished the report and made copies on the office printer. She handed Morrison the original and kept 3 copies for herself. I'll be following up on this, Principal Morrison, and I expect Brett and his friends to face appropriate consequences. Morrison just nodded miserably, already knowing those consequences would never come through official channels. As Caitlin left the office, she nearly collided with a woman hurrying in. The stranger was young, maybe late 20s, with tired eyes and nervous energy. You're the new chemistry teacher, the woman said. It wasn't a question. I'm Sarah Walsh, Connor's sister. Caitlin tensed, expecting another confrontation. Instead, Sarah glanced around nervously before pulling her aside. I want to apologize for my brother, Sarah whispered urgently, and to warn you, the Hawkins family, they destroyed my career when I refused Brett's advances 2 years ago. I was a nurse at Maplewood General. Now I can't get hired anywhere within 50 miles. What happened? Sarah's eyes darted around again. Brett cornered me at a hospital fundraiser when I reported it. Suddenly there were anonymous complaints about my work, medication errors that never happened, patient complaints from people I'd never treated. My nursing license is still under review. That's illegal. You could sue. With what lawyer? The Hawkins family owns the 2 biggest firms in town. The others won't touch cases against them. Sarah gripped Caitlin's arm. I'm telling you this because you seem strong. But strength isn't enough here. They have systems, networks. They'll come at you sideways. And before Caitlin could respond, Sarah hurried away, leaving behind only the lingering scent of antiseptic and fear. The rest of the day passed in a blur of whispers and stares. News of the chemistry lab incident had spread like wildfire. Students chose sides, some supporting their teacher, others siding with Brett out of fear or loyalty. During lunch, Caitlin sat in her empty classroom, door locked, reviewing her options. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your car. Her stomach tightened. Through her second-floor window, She could see the faculty parking lot. A crowd had gathered around her modest Honda Civic. By the time she reached the lot, dozens of students had formed a circle around her vehicle. Someone had spray-painted here "Uptight B" across the hood in neon orange. All 4 tires were slashed. The driver's side mirror dangled by wires. "Oh my God, Miss Foster!" Jade Patterson rushed over. Security cameras caught 3 guys in hoodies, but you can't see faces. Of course not. Caitlin surveyed the damage with practiced calm, though inside her fury built like a pressure cooker. She pulled out her phone and began documenting everything. "This is what happens when you stand up to them," someone muttered. "Worth it," another student said louder. "Did you see how she flipped Connor? It was epic." Within minutes, My Justice for Foster was trending locally on social media. Videos of the morning incident flooded TikTok and Instagram, despite the school's attempts to block them. "You should leave town," a voice said behind her. Caitlin turned to find Coach Peterson, the wrestling coach, looking genuinely concerned. "I've been here 15 years, seen what happens to people who cross the Hawkins family." "I don't run from bullies," Caitlin replied, continuing to photograph her vandalized car. "It's not about running. It's about survival." Peterson lowered his voice. "Brett's got a history. 3 teachers before you, 2 transferred, 1 had a nervous breakdown. The family always makes it look like the teacher's fault." "Then maybe it's time someone stopped them." Peterson shook his head. "You think you're the first to try the system's rigged. Miss Foster, the school board, the police, even the local media, all in their pocket." As if to prove his point, Caitlin's phone rang. Her insurance company. "Miss Foster, we're calling about your recent claim. Unfortunately, vandalism in school parking lots isn't covered under your current policy." "I haven't even filed a claim yet," Caitlin said slowly. "Oh." The representative sounded flustered. "I must have... Let me check. I'm sorry. There seems to be some confusion." Caitlin hung up. The intimidation tactics were escalating quickly. They weren't just trying to scare her, they were demonstrating their reach. That afternoon, she taught her remaining classes with orange paint visible through the windows, a constant reminder of the morning's events. Her students were distracted, anxious, some openly worried for her safety. "Miss Foster?" Marcus Thompson approached after final bell. "My mom's a journalist in the city. She wants to interview you about what happened." "Tell her thank you, but I need to handle this through proper channels first." Marcus nodded but slipped her a business card anyway, in case the proper channels don't work. As students filed out, Caitlin noticed Brett loitering in the hallway with a new group of friends. He blew her a mocking kiss when their eyes met. The message was clear: this was just the beginning. Caitlin spent the next hour alone in her classroom, grading papers and planning her next move. She'd trained for physical fights her whole life. This was different, a systematic attack on her career, her reputation, her life. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time, a video attachment. She opened it cautiously. The video showed her apartment building, her unit, her bedroom window. The camera zoomed in, showing her moving around inside from the night before. The message below read, "Nice pajamas, pink suits you." Caitlin's blood ran cold. They'd been watching her, stalking her. This went beyond school harassment. This was criminal. She immediately called the police, only to be told that without proof of who took the video, there was little they could do. "Probably just kids playing pranks," the officer said dismissively. "You know how seniors get this time of year?" "This is connected to an incident at school." "Oh, you're the teacher who attacked the Hawkins boy." "Yeah, we heard about that." The bias in his voice was obvious. Caitlin hung up, realizing the coach had been right. The system was rigged from top to bottom. That evening, she drove her damaged car to the only mechanic in town who might help her student. Naomi's father owned a small shop on the outskirts of Maplewood. "Miss Foster," Mr. Chen greeted her, shaking his head at the damage. "Naomi told me what happened. Those boys have been terrorizing people for years. Can you fix it?" "I can try, but—" He looked uncomfortable. "The Hawkins family owns the parts supplier. If they blacklist me—" "I understand," Caitlin said. "I'll pay cash, no paper trail." Mr. Chen studied her for a moment. "You know, my daughter came home today talking about how you stood up to those bullies. First time I've seen her excited about school in months." He grabbed his tools. "I'll fix your car. Some things are more important than money." While Mr. Chen worked, Caitlin sat in his small waiting room, planning her next move. She couldn't fight the Hawkins family through official channels. They owned those channels. But there were other ways to expose corruption. Her phone rang. Her mother, calling from Seattle. "Caitlin, honey, I just got the strangest call," her mother's worried voice said. "Someone claiming to be from your school, asking about your mental health history." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing, of course. But they knew things, Katie. About your father's death, about the therapy you had in college. How would they know that—" Caitlin gripped the phone tighter. Her father had died in a car accident when she was 19, a drunk driver from a wealthy family who got off with community service. It was why she'd started training in martial arts, channeling her rage into discipline. "They're trying to build a case against me," Caitlin explained. "Make me look unstable. Maybe you should come home," her mother pleaded. "This job isn't worth—" "Mom, they sexually harassed me. They're stalking me. If I run now, they'll do it to the next teacher and the next." "You're just like your father," her mother sighed, "always fighting battles for other people." After the call, Caitlin sat in the gathering darkness, watching Mr. Chen work on her car. She thought about Sarah Walsh, about Jennifer Martinez, about all the teachers and students who'd suffered in silence because fighting back seemed impossible. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email from Human Resources. "Dear Miss Foster, we've received concerning reports about your classroom management. Please report to the district office tomorrow at 8 a.m. for a formal review." The meeting was scheduled during her first period class. They were trying to make her choose between defending herself and abandoning her students. Classic manipulation tactic. Caitlin forwarded the email to her personal account, then opened her laptop. If they wanted to play dirty, she'd need to document everything, every threat, every incident, every piece of evidence. As she typed, she noticed movement outside the shop window. A black SUV with tinted windows had parked across the street. It had been there for 20 minutes now. Engine running. "Mr. Chen?" she called quietly. "Is there a back exit?" He looked up, saw the SUV, and his face hardened. "Through the garage. My son will drive you home in the tow truck." "I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering." He called out in Mandarin, and a young man appeared. "Tommy will take you. Different route each day. Okay, until this settles." The kindness of strangers was overwhelming. As Tommy drove her home through back streets, Caitlin realized she wasn't fighting alone anymore. The community Brett and his family had terrorized for years was quietly choosing sides. Back at her apartment, Caitlin triple-checked her locks and pulled her curtains tight. She set up her laptop in the bathroom, the only room without windows, and began researching. The Hawkins family had a long history in Maplewood, but every dynasty had secrets. 3 hours later. She found something interesting. A lawsuit from 5 years ago, settled out of court and sealed. But the plaintiff's name was visible: Jennifer Martinez, the same teacher who had had a breakdown. Caitlin dug deeper, using skills learned from her journalist roommate in college. Property records showed the Hawkins family had bought Martinez's house for well below market value 2 weeks after she left town. They'd profited from destroying her. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Miss Foster." The voice was female, older, professional. "This is Patricia Coleman from the State Education Board. I received some interesting videos today regarding an incident at Ridgemont High." Caitlin's heart leaped. Finally, someone outside the local system. "However," Coleman continued, "I also received a formal complaint from Superintendent Hawkins about your violent behavior toward students. This is very concerning. Ma'am, if you've seen the videos, you know I was defending myself against sexual harassment. The videos show you physically assaulting a student. Miss Foster, whatever the provocation, teachers cannot put hands on students. He was attempting to further damage my clothing after his friend had already torn my skirt. I understand you're upset, but perhaps Ridgemont High isn't the right fit for you. I can arrange a transfer to another district." Quietly. "Your record stays clean." The offer was tempting, a way out that saved face for everyone. But Caitlin thought about Jade Patterson, about Naomi Chen, about all the students who deserved better. "No," she said firmly, "I'm not leaving." "That's inadvisable. Miss Foster, the Hawkins family has significant influence at the state level. Fighting them won't end well for you." "Then I guess I'll have to fight harder," Coleman sighed. "I tried to help you. Remember that." The line went dead. Even the state board was compromised. How deep did this corruption go? Caitlin spent the rest of the night preparing for tomorrow's ambush, disguised as a meeting. She printed every email, every text, every piece of documentation. She backed up the student videos to multiple cloud services. She even sent copies to her mother in Seattle, just in case. At 3 a.m., her doorbell rang, then again and again. She checked her security app. Nobody was at the door, but the bell kept ringing. An electronic harassment designed to deprive her of sleep before the morning meeting. Caitlin disabled the doorbell and tried to rest, but her mind raced. Tomorrow would determine everything. Either she'd find a way to expose the truth, or she'd become another casualty of the Hawkins machine, as dawn broke over Maplewood. Caitlin prepared for battle. She chose her outfit carefully, a conservative pantsuit that projected authority. She styled her hair in a tight bun, applied minimal makeup. If they wanted to paint her as unstable or unprofessional, she'd give them nothing to work with. Her phone had 17 missed calls from unknown numbers overnight. 3 emails from HR, each more threatening than the last. A text from Brett that simply said, "Last chance to apologize." Caitlin deleted them all and drove to school in her hastily repaired car. The orange paint ghost still showed through Mr. Chen's quick patch job. But at least the tires held air. The faculty parking lot was strangely empty for 7:30 a.m. As she pulled in, she noticed why someone had blocked off half the lot with construction cones, forcing her to park in the far corner, isolated from the building. Walking across the empty lot, Caitlin felt eyes on her. Windows in the main building showed faces watching her approach. The black SUV from yesterday was parked by the main entrance. Inside, the hallways were deserted. Her footsteps echoed as she made her way to the district office wing. The secretary's desk was empty, but voices carried from the conference room. Caitlin checked her phone one last time. Marcus Thompson had sent a message. Mom's editor is interested. Says this could be huge if you have proof. Proof. Everything came down to proof in a system designed to hide evidence. She knocked on the conference room door and entered without waiting for permission. The scene inside made her stomach drop. Superintendent Hawkins sat at the head of the table, flanked by the entire school board. Principal Morrison hunched in a corner. 3 people in suits she didn't recognize, lawyers, probably, and in the witness chair, crying dramatically, sat Brett Hawkins with a black eye she certainly hadn't given him. "Miss Foster," Superintendent Hawkins said with a cold smile, "so good of you to join us. We were just reviewing the evidence of your violent assault on my nephew." The trap was set. The game was rigged. But Caitlin had learned long ago that sometimes the only way to win a rigged game was to flip the board entirely. She pulled out her phone, hit record, and said the words that would change everything. "Before we begin, I should mention that this entire meeting is being live-streamed to 1,200 followers. So please, Superintendent Hawkins, tell me more about this evidence you've fabricated." The room erupted in chaos, but Caitlin stood firm. The real fight was just beginning. "Turn that off immediately," Superintendent Hawkins roared, lunging across the table. Caitlin sidestepped smoothly, keeping her phone raised. "Actually, that would be destruction of evidence. Again, my viewers have already screen-capped your nephew's fake black eye. Amazing how it appeared overnight." Brett jumped up, his performative victim act crumbling. "You lying! Sit down, Brett." His uncle's voice was ice. The lawyers were frantically typing on their phones, probably trying to figure out the legal ramifications of attempting to silence a live stream. "Miss Foster," one lawyer spoke carefully, aware that 1,200 people were watching. "Recording without consent is public meeting doctrine." Caitlin interrupted. "Any meeting involving public officials discussing public employee matters is subject to transparency laws. I'm sure your law degree covered that." The viewer count climbed rapidly. 1,500, 2,000. Comments flooded in supporting Caitlin. Principal Morrison found his voice. "Perhaps we should postpone until—" Caitlin stepped further into the room. "We're doing this now. All of it. Starting with why Brett Hawkins has never faced consequences for 3 years of documented harassment." She pulled out a thick folder. 14 incident reports, 9 different teachers, 23 students, all buried by this administration. "Those are confidential," Hawkins started. "Were confidential, until whistleblower protections kicked in." Caitlin opened the folder. October 15th, 2022. Brett cornered freshman Melissa Santos in the art supply room. She reported it. Nothing happened. The report vanished. "You can't prove—" December 3rd, 2022. Brett and friends vandalized Ms. Jennifer Martinez's car. Security footage mysteriously corrupted. She was later driven out of town. "This is slander," Brett shouted. "Truth is an absolute defense against slander." Caitlin continued. January 20th, 2023. Brett groped substitute teacher Amanda Chen. When she complained, she was blacklisted from the district. The live stream comments exploded. Parents recognized their children's names. Former teachers confirmed incidents. The viewer count hit 5,000. February 12th, 2023. Sarah Walsh reported Brett's attempted assault at the hospital fundraiser. She lost her nursing job within a month. "Enough!" Superintendent Hawkins slammed his fist on the table. "This meeting is over. Security!" 2 security guards entered, but hesitated when they saw the recording phone. They knew their faces would be on video if they acted. March 8th, 2023. Caitlin continued relentlessly. Brett led a campaign targeting gay student Trevor Morrison, no relation to the principal. Trevor attempted suicide. His parents were paid to relocate quietly. Principal Morrison went pale. "That's not... I didn't know." "You signed the transfer papers." Caitlin showed the document to the camera. "Your signature. Their son nearly died because you protected Brett instead of students." The door burst open. Local news crews pushed in, having received tips from live stream viewers. Suddenly, the room filled with professional cameras and reporters. "Superintendent Hawkins," a reporter called out. "Care to comment on these allegations of systematic cover-ups?" Hawkins stood, trying to project authority. "This is a private personnel matter that you're conducting in a public building with public officials." Another reporter interrupted. "The public has a right to know." Brett made a fatal error. Seeing the cameras, his temper exploded. He shoved past Caitlin, or tried to. She shifted her weight slightly, and he stumbled into the wall. "She tripped me," he yelled. "You all saw it. She keeps attacking me." "I moved," Caitlin said calmly. "You fell, much like how you accidentally tore my skirt yesterday." "You be Brett." His uncle's warning came too late. Brett spun and swung at Caitlin. Time slowed. 8 years of training crystallized into perfect motion. She redirected his punch, used his momentum against him, and guided him into what looked like a simple sprawl. To observers, Brett simply tried to hit her and ended up on the floor. "That's assault," Caitlin announced clearly. "On camera, multiple angles, no mysteriously corrupted footage this time." Police officers arrived, called by concerned viewers. The lead officer surveyed the chaos. "We've received multiple reports of assault, harassment, and corruption. Everyone stays put." "Officer Johnson." Superintendent Hawkins tried his usual tactic. "Surely we can..." "Sir, I've got 300 emails in the last 10 minutes with evidence of crimes. Real evidence. Videos, documents, witness statements." Officer Johnson looked disgusted. "Did you really think you could keep hiding this?" The next hour unfolded like dominoes falling. Parents flooded the building demanding answers. School board members distanced themselves from Hawkins. Lawyers advised their clients to stop talking. Brett was arrested for assault, with additional charges pending. The black eye makeup smeared during his arrest, captured perfectly by news cameras. "This goes deeper," a new voice said. FBI agent Sarah Chen, no relation to the students, entered with a team. "We've been investigating the Hawkins family's finances. The school corruption is just the tip." Superintendent Hawkins' face went gray. "I want my lawyer." "You'll need several," Agent Chen replied. "Embezzlement, racketeering, obstruction of justice. Your nephew's behavior opened a door to much bigger crimes." As authorities processed the scene, Caitlin found herself surrounded by students who'd rushed to school after seeing the live stream. Jade Patterson was crying. Marcus Thompson looked vindicated. Naomi Chen hugged her tighter. "You did it," Jade whispered. "You actually did it." "We did it," Caitlin corrected. "Every student who spoke up, every parent who demanded better, every person who shared the stream. Change takes a community." The aftermath moved quickly. By noon, Superintendent Hawkins was in federal custody. Principal Morrison resigned, finally freed from years of shameful compliance. Brett's other victims came forward, building an overwhelming case. That afternoon, Caitlin tried to teach her chemistry class, but the energy was electric. Students who'd never spoken in class raised hands. Girls who'd hunched defensively sat tall. The culture shift was palpable. "Miss Foster," the intercom crackled. "Please report to the main office." The class tensed, but Caitlin smiled. "Probably more paperwork. Continue reading Chapter 12. In the office, she found State Education Director Patricia Coleman, the same woman who'd tried to silence her last night. But Coleman's attitude had transformed. "Miss Foster," Coleman began formally, "I owe you an apology. The State Board reviewed everything. We're appointing an emergency oversight committee for Maplewood schools. We'd like you to serve on it." "I just want to teach," Caitlin replied. "You can do both. Your actions exposed systemic failures we've ignored too long. We need voices like yours in leadership." Caitlin considered it. Full transparency, no backroom deals. Everything public, full accountability. Coleman looked ashamed. "I knew something was wrong here. I was just too cowardly to fight it. You showed us what courage looks like." Over the following weeks, the investigation expanded. The Hawkins family's empire crumbled as financial crimes surfaced. Money meant for schools had funded private jets. Contracts went to family friends at inflated prices. The corruption touched everything. Brett pleaded guilty to multiple charges, receiving 2 years in juvenile detention and mandatory therapy. His parents, freed from the superintendent's influence, finally acknowledged their son needed help. Connor Walsh publicly apologized, admitting he'd enabled Brett out of fear. He started attending therapy and transferred schools to begin fresh. Diego Ramirez testified against Brett in exchange for community service, which he served by speaking at other schools about breaking free from toxic friendships. Jennifer Martinez returned to Maplewood, reinstated with back pay and damages. She took over as interim principal, bringing compassion born from her own suffering. Sarah Walsh got her nursing license restored and returned to the hospital, where she implemented new protocols for reporting workplace harassment. The ripples spread beyond Maplewood. Caitlin's live stream inspired teachers nationwide to document and report abuse. The hashtag #TeachersDefendingStudents trended for weeks. Congress held hearings on corruption in education. 3 months later, Caitlin stood in her repaired classroom, watching students work on their final projects. The walls displayed their work proudly. The energy was collaborative, not fearful. "Miss Foster." Jade Patterson approached with a gift bag. We all pitched in. Inside was a custom T-shirt reading "The Teacher Who Fights Back," with a chemical formula for courage underneath. The back listed every student's name from that fateful chemistry class. "We wanted you to know," Marcus Thompson added, "that you changed our lives, not just by fighting Brett, but by showing us we deserve teachers who protect us." Caitlin's eyes misted. "You all protected each other. That's the real lesson." Her phone buzzed. An email from a production company wanting to turn her story into a movie. She deleted it. The real story wasn't about one dramatic confrontation, it was about a community learning to stand together against systemic abuse. That evening, Caitlin taught a self-defense class in the gym. 40 students, mostly girls, but several boys too, learned basic protection techniques, but more importantly, they learned confidence. "Remember," she told them, "physical defense is the last resort. Your voice is your first weapon. Document everything, support each other, and never let anyone convince you that power means more than justice." As class ended, the new principal, Jennifer Martinez, stopped by. "The school board approved your proposal. anti-bullying programs in every grade, mandatory training for all staff, and an anonymous reporting system that bypasses local administration. It's a start, Caitlin agreed. You could have left, Martinez observed. Taken the quiet transfer. Why stay? Caitlin looked at her students packing up, laughing and supporting each other. Because someone needs to teach chemistry. And sometimes, someone needs to teach courage, too. 1 year later, Ridgemont High was unrecognizable. The culture of fear had been replaced by one of accountability. Test scores rose as students felt safe to learn. The school became a model for reform nationwide. Brett Hawkins, now in therapy and serving his sentence, sent a letter to Caitlin. She shared it with her class. Miss Foster, I spent 18 years thinking power meant hurting others. You showed me real power is protecting others. I have a long way to go, but I'm trying. Thank you for stopping me before I destroyed more lives, including my own. The class discussed redemption, justice, and the possibility of change. They were mature conversations, possible only because they felt safe to explore difficult topics. As the bell rang, Caitlin watched her students leave, confident and unafraid. The torn skirt from that terrible day was framed in her apartment, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes standing up to bullies meant standing up to entire systems. Her phone rang. Another school district, another teacher facing harassment, asking for advice. Document everything, Caitlin said. Build your support network. And remember, they're counting on your silence. Your voice is more powerful than their threats. She hung up and prepared for tomorrow's chemistry class. There would always be more battles, more bullies, more systems that protected the powerful over the vulnerable. But now, there were also more fighters, more teachers willing to defend their students, more communities ready to demand justice. The revolution Caitlin had started with one live stream continued to spread. And in her classroom at Ridgemont High, students learned chemistry, courage, and the unbreakable truth that had defined Caitlin Foster from the beginning. Nobody touches her students. Nobody.